Hello and welcome to We the Jury, the People's Court of Interactive Television, where the verdict is yours. Tonight, the Royal House of Windsor is in the dock as we debate, should Charles be king? Some people argue that the impending divorce of Charles and Diana will in no way affect the prince's succession to the throne. He was born to be king and he will become king when the time comes. Others argue that the War of the Waleses has brought the monarchy into such disrepute that there are serious doubts about the prince's suitability to become king, and even question the future of the Royal House of Windsor. What do you think? Well, you'll have your chance to tell us during the programme by voting yes or no on our vote line, and also giving your opinions on the debate on the hotline. Helping you to come to your view will be our studio audience, who will be following the cut and thrust as outlined by our two principal speakers. Leading the side for the monarchy is Ingrid Seward, Editor-in-Chief of Majesty magazine. And against her is Joan Burney, columnist for the Daily Record. Listening to the debate will of course be our jury, who at the end of the programme will be voting, and we'll see how their verdict ties in with yours at home. They are volunteers from all walks of life.
Andrew Foggy, a Deputy Rector from Inverness. Lynn Ross, an advertising manager from Ellen near Aberdeen. Raymond Bremner, a factory supervisor for Wick. Sandra Craig, who's unemployed from Arbroath. Alan McIntosh, a plumber from Aberdeen. Jeanette Malcolm, a charity fundraiser from Dundee. Innes MacLeod, a senior financial consultant from Stornoway. Connie Fraser, a single parent from Lossiemouth. George Whitten, a chef from Arbroath. Julie Gerritley, a schoolgirl from Stonehaven near Aberdeen. George Simmons, a retired taxi driver from Dundee. Louise Matheson, a teacher from Carbridge near Inverness.
But we also want to hear, of course, from you at home. To vote tonight, if you think that Charles should be king, then this is the number to ring to record your yes vote. 0891 11 22 55. And if you think that Charles should not be king, to record your no vote, call 0891 11 22 66. And if the lines are engaged, do keep trying. You can give your views during the programme as well, of course. Ali Bally from Radio Tay AM, Paul Martin Davis from North Sound 2, and Titch McCooey from Maryforth Radio are all waiting to take your calls. Ali, just in case there's anyone still out there who doesn't know how to take part, could you tell us?
Certainly, yes. The hotline number is Aberdeen 636 333, and we're waiting here for your calls, as we have been taking them from 8 o'clock this evening when we first started talking about it. Interesting, we've again had a little chat amongst ourselves a few moments ago to see what the calls were. A lot of sympathy, surprisingly, as far as we were concerned, on the Charles side. And it's summed up by one caller we felt was quite good, who said that Charles is and has been born to be king. He just had the unfortunate circumstances of marrying a mad woman who's power and money mad, and really just get rid of Diana and let him get on with being what he's supposed to be, and that's king. It would seem the public at the moment are in sympathy with Charles. But of course, if the views have changed as we go along tonight, we'll let you know about it.
Well, I'm sure we'll be touching on that subject as well. Thanks, Ali. We'll come back to you later. But let's get started into the debate. Here is our first speaker, Ingrid Seward. Ingrid, you have 2.5 minutes to tell us why you think Charles should be king.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury. What do we want from a king in the 21st century? A man who is honourable and above the pettiness of politics. A man whose duty becomes above all else. Someone who cares about the future of the country our children will one day inherit. Someone who, in the words of Kipling, whilst being lied about doesn't deal in lies, or being hated doesn't give way to hatred. That man is the Prince of Wales. That he cares is not in doubt. The Prince's Trust, which he created 15 years ago, has helped scores of thousands of young people rejected by the rest of society find their feet in business life. It's now the biggest charity of its kind in Britain and has hundreds of successful businesses, turning over a combined total of £50 million a year. What politician would or could do that? With the help of thousands of volunteers, he's done what he can to help transform the inner cities. He has brought the plight of many, many underprivileged people to the attention of an influential few. He did the same with architecture, insisting that local people would have a voice about the communities in which they live. We may not agree with his style or taste, But he voiced the concerns of many who spoke out against the soulless tyranny of concrete and steel. He was one of the first to speak up about the environment, because he wants to preserve our planet for future generations. His commitment is total, and his dedication does not waver, no matter how cruelly he is criticised. Since birth, he's been trained to take hold of the slippery reins of the monarchy. He alone knows how it feels to go on while suffering injustices of untruth. Once, and only once, in his life has he spoken about the collapse of his marriage. He could have lied. He could have avoided the issue. He chose not to. Rather, he said he had been faithful to his wife for more than 5 years after their wedding, and only after the marriage had irretrievably broken down did he seek out the companionship that everyone, including a prince, is surely entitled to. He never said he didn't love his wife. He has experienced as much pain over the relationship as she has, but he chose not to talk about it, for the sake of his children and out of respect for their mother. But he has been attacked for telling the truth. Foul rumour has been spread about him, which has no basis in fact. Are we then to criticise a man for his honesty? Are we in a nation where almost every second marriage ends in divorce, going to deprive a man of his birthright because his marriage has failed? Would we want a king who was dishonest and only gave political answers? He has it in him to be a very good king, perhaps because of what he has suffered, an even better king. He must be given that chance, for our sakes as well as his own.
Ingrid, thank you. And challenging the case is Joan Browning.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the first King Charles believed in the divine right of kings to do whatever they pleased, including forcing an alien religion, bell, prayer book and bishops upon the Scottish nation. The second King Charles was an oversexed rake who also believed in the divine right of kings to sleep with anyone. Ladies and gentlemen, I suggest to you that if we had a King Charles III, we could well end up with a mixture of them both. A man who believes he can do what he pleases, with whom he pleases, any time he pleases. A prince who publicly yearns for the good old days. Of course he does, because then the monarchy was clothed in deference and surrounded by hypocrisy. This man who would be king, who speaks to us of duty 1 minute and very dirty to his mistress the next. It is no defence to say he is only human, because if he was indeed only human, what he did would not be our concern, but to rule over us, happy and glorious, the sovereign must surely be more than merely human. If that was all it took to be a king, any of us, any of you, could do it. A coronation is a contract agreed between monarch and people, but it's also a deeply religious ceremony, consecrated in a cathedral and presided over by this country's most senior clergyman. It's also a ceremony during which the people are asked to accept their king. They must, according to the ritual, signify their willingness by loud and repeated acclamations, all with one voice crying, and I quote, "God save the king." In return for their support and acceptance, the anointed king must make them his own solemn promises. Now I ask you, ladies and gentlemen of this jury, what other ceremony does this remind you of? What other contract between two consenting parties is made in the sight of God and of a joyful congregation? Let me quote from the Prince of Wales himself. In July 1981, I, Charles Philip Arthur George, do most solemnly swear that from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death us do part, and thereto I plight thee my troth. It wasn't much of a troth, was it, ladies and gentlemen? Not if Princess Panorama is to be believed. As she said, there were always, please note, always 3 of us in the marriage. It got a bit crowded. I ask you, can we trust this prince to uphold his coronation vows to us the people when he so easily broke those he made to his lawful wedded wife? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, God save the Queen, most certainly, but God save us from King Charles III.
Joan, thank you. And at the end of the programme, both speakers will get an opportunity to sum up tonight's discussion. But for now, let's open up the debate to our studio audience. Neil Asherton, first of all, is the monarchy on its last legs anyway? Are its days numbered?
Its days probably are numbered, it seems to me, and there are reasons for that. And one of the reasons is that what is happening today is happening. What we are doing is, in fact, talking about a monarch as if he were a sort of presidential candidate. People are standing up and pleading and saying, this man has great qualities, i.e. vote for him. But of course there isn't a vote. There isn't a vote. I mean, what's happened is that people in England, Scotland, the rest of the UK have simply grown up. They have grown up. And they no longer believe in a monarchy as a set of symbols which you simply worship, so that the person, whoever it is, who wears the crown, sits on the throne, is indifferent. It doesn't matter who it is, how crazy, incompetent, whoever he is. That doesn't matter, you see. This was the old way. People worship the symbols. When you have that sort of primitive situation, heredity works.
But now you're saying the person matters.
Exactly. We've grown up to the point which we no longer worship crowns and kings, but we look at the people who sit on the throne and wear the crown.
Okay, Roddy Martin. I'll come to you in a second, Alan, but Roddy Martin, do you accept that that is the case?
Well, I don't accept that is the case, because I think that that's a very personal indictment. I think the situation that has arisen is an overview of the nation as a whole and our society as a whole, where an individual who is put into a position of great responsibility is subject to tremendous scrutiny by invasion of privacy, tabloid newspapers, televisions poking into every corner of their life.
Isn't that the point, that because our attitude to the monarchy has changed, then perhaps we have grown up?
I think that we haven't grown up. It's all great fun. It's all very... I think the more we talk about it, the less seriously people are taking it. Actually, if it comes to the crunch, you know, we look at this hard-working, serious, very caring man, Charles, and, you know, he is somebody who I think, given the opportunity to lead this country above the political rabble, will do a very, very good job.
Okay, Alan?
I wouldn't agree that the monarchy is over or nearly over, because if we look at Europe, where we've got a new monarchy in Spain taken over in 75, their monarchs are very close to the people, the Dutch monarchy, the Belgian, the Danish monarchy, and they're close to the people because they have come across to the people as being human. They make mistakes, they go through life, they're close to the people. So I think that our monarchy will progress as being closer to the people as the European monarchies are.
David?
I think the monarchy should be over, but I don't think it will be for a long time. It's originated in the Dark Ages, and it's a very resilient, very powerful source.
But isn't that because it provides continuity if nothing else?
I think what it provides is a kind of focus of superstition that people still haven't outgrown. I'm surprised that somebody referred to the masses as rabble, because that's probably the way these superior royals and aristocrats actually feel about common men and women. They feel that they're above that, and their sycophants and hangers-on reinforce that all the time for them, as they did in the Dark Ages.
So Ross, what has the monarchy got going for it that, say, a republic hasn't got?
Well, it's got to change, and it is changing. I think that the old deference has given way to increasing indifference, but monarchies don't go because of indifference. Their going is normally violent, and I'm not sure that we're ready in this country to go down that route.
But isn't the point that you just said deference? Deference by birth is disappearing. The House of Lords looks as if it might be for the chop next. The monarchy depends on deference because of birth.
To an extent, but as the gentleman pointed out, a lot of European countries are now looking to monarchies, Spain being one. The Dutch royal family has been a remarkably successful and resilient house. The Scandinavians are still there. It's an alternative form of government which is as old as republics, and it's worked very well to this country for 1,000 years.
And if the alternative is a republic, then republics are not perfect democratic utopias. We've got, if we want to look at South America and the tin pot fascist presidents there, the human rights records. If one looks at America, recently Richard Nixon, not a good president, a crook. Bill Clinton, his presidency at the moment dogged by scandal, his wife before the grand jury. If we look at European presidents, Kurt Waldheim, the Austrian president.
Nixon's people were able to impeach him. We can't do that with royalty.
Well, we've had elections. Yes. All presidents are elected, fair enough, but there are some don't take the final result and hang on to power. Nigeria, He or she, for example, a president, once he's got power,
What he's saying is that the head of state of a republic is not necessarily any less scandal-ridden than the monarch.
Exactly.
Yes, but we can get rid of them.
It's a question of whether you want to be led or whether you want to be represented. And in this country at the moment, we are represented by a royal family who, good or bad, good at the job, terrible at the job, we can't get rid of them. And by the implication, them being there in charge of the country, there is a whole hierarchy of people beneath them. We are not just talking about a monarch. We are talking about people in society who are saying, we are born to do this, we are better than you. And obviously people on this side seem to think they're somewhere in a hierarchy. I wonder, do they think they're above me or below me?
We have
Is
got rid
Mr.
of them.
Darwin below me or
Changing dynasties are part of the game.
Gentleman there. You've been a royal butler.
Yes, and I've worked with the monarchy as human people. They are human. They don't request all this publicity that they get. They don't like it. The lifestyle they live is quite different from anybody else. But just a moment. But what you people never come up with, you never ever come up with, because I'm a staunch royalist here, you never come up with the fact that who's going to replace it and why? You haven't got that answer. You can't answer that.
We replaced it with somebody that we vote for, that we can then vote out if they're no good. We can't vote out any of this.
Suppose they hang on to power and refuse to be removed, as happened the other day. As happened in Germany. As happened in Germany in 1940.
Behind you there.
And this idea of superiority, I mean, it's arrant nonsense they're talking on the other side. The reality is, what they are saying is, Prince Charles is not suitable to be king. What they should be arguing is that the constitutional monarchy is in fact the guarantee of the freedoms in Scotland, in this country, because the Queen is above politics. And however great Lord Callaghan, however great Sir Edward Heath, those two gentlemen are not going to unite Scotland the way the Queen has done since she came to accession.
But the monarchy is above politics.
Countries around the world do absolutely splendidly without these kind of figureheads. Mary Robertson in Ireland has the country behind her. She does a wonderful job. And the day that she's not...
was hated by the people, by the other side of those people in the Civil War against De Valera.
We had to get rid of a king because he was a Nazi.
Kurt Waldheim, UN General Secretary, President of Australia,
Okay, Alan, okay, major point. But look at it this way.
We must really say what are we going to have in place of the monarch? Are we really going to have
they want a presidency.
Are we really going to have a film star or somebody who is quite inappropriate?
Well, let's look at what we have. Let us look at what we have. A royal family, which is what the monarchy has been based on for basically since the war. This is what it's been selling itself as. Is that family still credible? Ross, is the family still credible?
Yes, I think it is. It's got a lot of problems, and they're fairly obvious, they're fairly transparent, but it's the institution which we identify with, because the monarchy is us. We project onto the monarchy what we wish to see in ourselves, and that institution, I think, is still very resilient, quite capable of continuing and showing us through into the next century.
But isn't there...
So Prince Charles has had this with Camilla Parker Bowles. We read about, we're all sick of reading it, but it's already happened. Henry VIII did this with God knows how many, and had 6 wives. Edward VII had Lily Langtry and Alice Keppel. But I mean, it all went on.
But Peter, do they deserve the enormous amount of privilege that they have? I mean, they have different lives from us, don't they? I mean, they don't live like ordinary people, do they? Well, give us an example. Do they live like presidents?
They don't have to cook. They don't have to wash up. They don't have to drive a car. They don't have to make their bed. They don't have to do anything like that, granted. But then I would rather do that. Just a moment. I would rather do that than do what they are expected to do now. Many's a time when the Queen's got out of her bed and thought, my God, I've got to open Parliament today. But she doesn't do it for herself. She doesn't do it for herself. I mean, listen, if Ross decided he didn't want to go into the Daily Express tomorrow, he'd ring in and say, I'm sorry, Cock, I'm sick. She can't do that.
He would not get paid. If the Queen decided not to open Parliament, she would still get her civil list money.
And if Ross's readers didn't like what he was doing in his job, he wouldn't be in his job any longer.
The problem is that
but no one said that.
There's a contract.
I'll come to you in a second, sir.
To enjoy their privilege, there is an expectation that the people have got, and that's that they're going to give us some kind of moral lead. Now, clearly they're not doing that. If they want to act like a normal family, and if they want us to treat them as a normal family, and all the reasons for the monarchy have gone. We expect a certain standard of behaviour from them, and they're clearly not doing that. And that's why there is this debate now.
What strikes me is us politicians, when we lose an argument, one of our worst traits is to start attacking the person rather than the arguments he's putting forward. What we have here is they're attacking Charles. They're avoiding the issue of the constitutional monarchy because they know they can't win that argument.
Gentlemen, down there, you've been trying for a while.
Tabloids have been having enormous fun, and I find it quite interesting that they almost relate it to the same as a football manager. You know, when Graham Taylor, the England manager, they didn't like him and he wasn't performing to their expectations. They had these polls and they campaigned, should he go? And it's exactly the same with Prince Charles. You know, it's only a couple of weeks ago that one of the sort of cheap tabloids had a poll, should Charles be king? And people were ringing up and they were making profits from their 0898 numbers. And you know, they treat it like a joke, and they should be a little bit...
No, I want to, Neil, if I could, I just want to move on to ask you this. Republican feeling isn't new. Scandals aren't new. Why is it that all of a sudden it seems to matter so much? The monarchy has had this for centuries.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't had this kind of treatment and this kind of massive disrespect. There have always been, you know, narrow cliques at the court who disrespected the monarchy, or who took the King's party or the court party or the Prince of Wales's party, whatever. That's as old as the hill. But massive disrespect of this kind is new, and it's very important. And the difficulty is, as I've been saying, I personally I'm indifferent to whether, you know, the personality of Charles. This is not what we're talking about. I am talking about a republic. A republic is a noble thing. It's about democracy.
David?
And it's about choice.
I think the problem today for people is how do we justify the existence of a hereditary monarchy? Why should we have a hereditary monarchy? Hereditary monarchy, people who by right, as it were, of birth, and no other right, can, as it were, represent us, if not rule over us. And that is because they stand for principles, for the core values of our society, whatever they happen to be. If those core values are family, if those core values are dedication to hard work and duty and so on, some of these they fulfill, but the most basic values of our society they're ceasing to fulfill. That's the problem.
So you say they have to justify their existence?
Well, not justify their existence in a moral sense. Not by how much it costs us. I can easily argue that a president or a republic would cost as much, if not more. But they do have to be morally superior. It's not enough to say they're like the rest of us.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, for the moment we're going to have to stop it because we're coming to a break. We've had a fairly varied reaction there from our audience. Let's get an initial reaction from the jury. Now, who? You here, sir.
Well, I feel that any future king or queen is going to have to earn the respect of the country that they're going to rule.
So you agree with David there?
We have very little respect for a future king, if that's what he's going to be.
Okay, and here?
Well, I've been listening to both sides of the debate tonight, and I've been very impressed by some good arguments, but there hasn't really been an argument that's convinced me yet, so I'll have to pay attention to the second half before I decide.
Okay, and the lady there?
I'm also listening very closely to both arguments, and I haven't made up my mind how I feel, but I thought that the first speaker made a very good point when he said that the public has grown up, and I'm listening closely to what's going to be said now.
Okay, all still to play for apparently. We're going to take a break now, so keep your calls coming in. We'll have a roundup of your views when we come back, but do keep phoning. Welcome back to We the Jury. The subject under the spotlight tonight, should Charles be king? Ali, what's been the reaction so far?
Very, very mixed so far. Isabel from Perth said that Britain can't afford the royals. I mentioned tourism, for instance. She said Loch Lomond attracts lots of tourists, and that doesn't cost us a fortune. Stuart and Bridge of Dawn took the opposite view. Yes, he should be king. The problem, according to Stuart, is that Charles married below himself. Diana was not bred to be queen. She has no understanding of the royal family and the way they work.
Oh, I wonder how that is. Titch.
Maureen in Fraserburgh, she said, yes, let him be king. She said the whole royal family are corrupt, secretive, deceitful, so he deserves to be king every bit as much as any of them, she said. Pat and Bankery.
And betrayed one of his best friends, a certain Mr. Parker Bowles.
Clearly the same bloke. Okay. Right, Ross. Is this all questioning and criticism? Is it all because of Prince Charles's own personality, his weaknesses? Is he the one who's really set all this off?
Yes, he's a victim, and he invites the kind of problems that he's got. And amongst the things that he is a victim of is one of the foulest campaigns against him, his good name, that I think we've seen this century. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that the first person who committed adultery was not Prince Charles, it was the Princess of Wales.
Well, what evidence do you have for that? Wait a second, please.
There is no doubt on the part of the royal servants, there is no doubt on the part of Camilla Parker Bowles' family, some of whom are close friends of mine and have been for many years. But we've bought her version. Hearsay. We have bought it. Hearsay is the other side.
Who is she supposed to have committed adultery with?
We know very well. She admitted it herself on Panorama.
Yeah, but not first.
We have bought her version of events, lock, stock and barrel, and pilloried a man on the basis of untruth rumour.
Right.
He admitted adultery. Even if that's
irrelevant. It's irrelevant. You've just said, this side has just said, that the personality of the king is very important because he has to, in a way, justify his existence.
We have to rely on him doing the right thing, just as we have to rely on the Queen paying tax. We have to rely on him and not cocking up his marriage. We can't do anything about it.
So even if he was the most splendid and perfect human being, you wouldn't be interested.
We don't know his son's going to be the most splendid and perfect. We wouldn't be hypocritical.
Gentleman there, wait a second.
The gentleman there has said that Charles is a victim, and that he's also said that Diana committed adultery first, which, according to the Dimbleby interview, Charles admitted he'd committed adultery. Now, we don't know if he was first or she was first.
Oh, yes, we do. Irretrievable breakdown of marriage was his case, and
we know
in 1986 was with Hewitt. That's according to their timetable. All you have to do is follow the timetable, and it is quite clear that we
So what you're saying here is that he was driven to it.
As a nation, we have been deceived.
I mean, I think this is all irrelevant. We do know that he married Diana because she was a virgin who came from good stock, who would be used as a brood mare, and when she gave him the heir and the spare, he had had enough of her.
We're here tonight. We're here tonight.
He never said he didn't love his wife. Well, wait a second, I saw him at the beginning. I talked to him. He never stopped talking about Diana. He did love her. It's not fair to say.
So what went wrong? I mean, was it entirely not his fault? It's not his problem.
Of course, it was both of their faults. I don't think this is really the issue. I think it's with both of their faults, and they're both very hurt by
But
it.
if he loved her, why didn't he support her when she needed him the most? He was passively aggressive to his wife simply by not supporting her in a dreadful family. They were all against her, ganging up on her.
That's not true.
They were all ganging up on her. They still are ganging up on her.
Gentlemen there, Canon, you are from the Church of England, correct?
Yes, from St.
Can you
Paul's
tell
Cathedral.
me?
This programme is turning into a tabloid newspaper slang.
Well, no, it has to be said. It has to be said that the personality of Charles and what he has done is important that he has command respect.
That have not been the crucial questions.
Wait a second, please let him
The
speak.
crucial questions that have not been addressed. First of all, is that every figure in authority now gets slagged off, and therefore it wouldn't matter whether we have a republic or anything else. The top people get slagged off.
Yes, but you're talking about slagged off as if they didn't. But he has admitted committing adultery.
I haven't had a chance to get a word in. Can I get the second point? The first one is that. The second is that we have had a republic. It lasted 11 years, and we were jolly glad to get out of it in the middle of the 17th century.
But can I ask you, as a canon of the Church of England, he's admitted to committing adultery. Now, this side are saying to have a king, he has to be able to command respect. As a member of the Church of England, can you say that that is something that would command respect?
Well, of course, committing adultery doesn't command respect, but then the whole point about this is that we've had a monarchy now for 1,200 years. There have been rogues and all sorts of... That's not the point.
It's just a better system.
I have sworn allegiance, and every time I move, I swear allegiance to the Queen and her heirs and successors by law. I do not say if they are goodies or baddies, because there have been lots of baddies. I'm not even sure that I'm a monarchist in essence, but I believe in this nation's monarchy, because for 1,200 years they've been better than anything else on offer.
Okay, there. Peter, come to you in a second, I promise. There.
Let me say this. I do know from fact, and this is fact, that Prince Philip was pretty hard on Prince Charles through his growing up years. He was gearing him towards becoming a future king and succeeding his wife, the Queen. Now, he was courting Camilla Parker Bowles a long time ago, before he even got anywhere near Diana Spencer. Her father was private secretary to King George VI and was well, and they knew she existed. She's always been in the background. But he was very, very keen on Camilla Parker Bowles, and he would have married her years ago, but for the fact that his father, Philip, wanted him to pursue a naval career, and therefore he went into the Navy, and Camilla Parker Bowles then married Andrew Parker Bowles. And then, of course, he's never forgotten her, and he's really gone back to his first love. This is really what's happened.
Lady there.
Well, I feel that Prince Charles should renounce the throne now.
Why?
Because, well, he waited a long time before he married. And he found he couldn't cope with one person. So how is he going to manage to cope with billions of us? You know, we're going to finish up
beside you, please. These people haven't spoken yet. Beside you.
Well, I can't believe that we're still looking at him as a man of honour when he has dishonoured his marriage. We can't look up to him in any way at all, and I'm astonished at a clergyman saying that we can accept this and go along with it.
Well, I'm sorry, but isn't that very relevant to the lack of respect? Please.
He's getting divorced. End of story. Usually 30% of marriages in this country break up more, 40%, 60% of second marriages. He's getting divorced. There is usually, normally, a third party involved. That is what's happened here. That doesn't make him a bad person. It doesn't make him unfit to be king. And that's the issue.
Gentleman behind you there. Wait a minute, I'll come to you, gentleman there. Okay, Alan, gentleman there.
Can we please move on from his sex life to rather more important aspects of his character? If the world judged their leaders by their sleeping habits, we would have lost rather a lot over the years.
But isn't it not just sleeping habits? Isn't it, please, is it not just sleeping habits? Isn't it also allegedly dishonesty?
This is one aspect of his character. There is an enormous part of his character.
He was honest eventually about it, but isn't adultery in essence dishonesty?
He was honest when he was asked. It's an act surely of gross hypocrisy to then accuse him of being dishonest because he was honest.
But isn't adultery in itself dishonesty?
But he was the
ultimately he admitted it eventually, but he did it.
Not after a marriage has broken down.
Okay, well, isn't this a good point? Adultery and divorce are facts of life in this society. Why condemn him?
That's exactly what I wanted to say, because there is an absurdity built into this discussion, which is that people appear to wish him to be the representative so that we can be like him. At the same time, when he behaves like we do, you attempt to conspew him altogether. I mean, this is a sign of the impossibility which now covers this job, and why we are slowly, cruelly torturing a family to death. The truth is that nobody, not Charles, nobody could fulfill this job now. It is too late. In the past, many people have done things in their family.
The Queen is Neil, hold on! Neil.
Elected President of the Republic.
The Queen is managing perfectly well, isn't she? Everybody says she is beyond reproach. I mean, isn't that the kind of monarch? If you have the Queen, nobody seems to be too bothered. It's Charles that seems to be setting this off.
The Queen is at the head of a dysfunctional family. Rubbish. And now you just need to look at the record of her offspring and the 3 divorces that are there.
Your children what
now,
to do, can you?
Now, Charles came onto television and spoke about the breakdown of his marriage and admitted adultery. Now, I've worked with children all my life. How do you think that his sons view father going on admitting to adultery?
Can I ask you something? Is it because of that admission of adultery? Is that why you think he's not fit to be king?
No, I think monarchy is an anachronism now. I am all for a republic.
About the marriage breakdown,
yes.
The lady said in her opening that the marriage had broken down irretrievably. Well, how had it broken down irretrievably? Because of Charles's adultery?
No, Ross has just said that it actually was the other side that started adultery.
No, but I don't accept that. I don't think that's proven.
Even if that was
that isn't, and they brought that up in the beginning.
Committed adultery first. Even if that was the case, Charles has shown by his reaction that he is neither gracious nor noble. So who's going to stand up and
Why
sing
do you
the
say
national
that? What do you mean by his reaction?
Because, well, he's saying Charles only committed adultery because Diana did it first. But any...
I wasn't saying that at all. I wasn't
well,
saying that at all.
that's what you implied. Now, Charles should have been willing, as a husband who had taken his marriage vows, to stand by Diana, even if she was unfaithful.
And it's because of this that you think he shouldn't be king?
Yeah,
is this what
because
you're
I
saying?
can't stand up and say that he's gracious and noble, that I want him to live long.
Right, isn't this what people are saying here?
Have you ever had any leaders at all who are perfect?
No.
I can only think of one person who was perfect. Now, if they're not perfect, I am not defending adultery as somebody ever there seems to think. No, I'm not. I am not for one moment defending adultery. What I am saying is that none of us is perfect, and therefore to pick on only one thing, however serious, and say that totally disbars someone from anything in senior office in life is ridiculous.
If they had a breathalyzer test, they wouldn't have let Winston Churchill out of bed in the morning.
Joan.
Winston Churchill was an elected representative. We come back, you are a canon of the Church of England. When Charles takes his coronation vows, as I understand it, he vows to uphold the laws of the Church of England.
Yes.
And does not recognise adultery, does it?
No.
So
but
how
on the
can
other hand,
like he be head of your
churches,
church?
we have to live with the realities of human
way
beings
that you
who are not
live.
perfect and who are also forgivable.
You're prepared to accept everything and carry on. I think the issue's been complicated by the fact that Diana's been suffering in the past from a psychiatric disorder, and the royal family in total, not just Charles, but the rest of the family, has a very old-fashioned attitude towards that. They don't want to help someone who's ill.
An
They want to
uncaring
turn their backs on someone. They just ignore her. They just ignore her. They say,
Is Charles's fate coming down to a battle in public for hearts and minds between Charles and Diana? Is that what it's coming down to? I mean, you're all saying the sex life isn't important. Tell us why.
It's been happening for the last 5 or 6 years. Charles, the way Charles plays it, he gets on with the job. The way that his estranged wife plays it is to go on television and play for the hearts and minds of the public. She wants to be the queen. Well, all he was doing the job that he was doing. You know, he was presenting his work. That program lasted for 2 hours. The conversation about adultery lasted less than 30 seconds. Do you talk about the 2 hours of work that he did? No, you talk about the less than 30 seconds. It's most unkind to the man. As I said, he is a victim of black propaganda.
It's becoming trivialised. Somebody said earlier, it's almost like a tabloid. The issue, I think, ties up with what Neil started off with. Society, and I think the people in Britain, are growing up. We've come to terms with the fact we no longer need a monarchy. The fact that Charles and Di and the whole issue's come to light in the last few years, it comes together.
Yeah.
Well, the whole monarchy is falling to bits. People are looking around, looking at other countries and saying, why do we need a monarchy? We can have a republic, a Bill of Rights, proportional representation, everything else we need to have a proper society.
You wouldn't necessarily get a better person as head of state, would you? I mean, apart from the adultery, Charles is perfectly
acceptable. Not by dint of birth, but by somebody, by talent,
Gentlemen,
by experience,
you haven't spoken yet. I want to
expertise.
give people a chance.
It seems to me that it's basic human nature in a democracy to want to have the power to throw the bums out. And it's obvious to me that a lot of the indignation in Britain comes from the fact that the public is powerless to do anything about Charles' behavior. If you were an elected official, perhaps he would behave a bit better.
Clinton's meant to have been absent as well, hasn't he?
But we have the power in the United States to throw him out, and that's the great thing about it.
But it has to be said, sir, that you as a nation are absolutely fascinated by the royals, aren't you? I mean, look at the treatment you give them when they go across. Why is that?
It's more of a celebrity status kind of thing. Most Americans equate them with almost like
jealousy. They're saying jealousy that you don't have a monarchy anymore.
No. 22 million people watched the Panorama programme during Princess Diana's interview. If people are growing up and we're sick of the monarchy, why does it attract 22 million viewers? To me, that sends a message that they're they are genuinely interested in the monarchy. Governments in this country get to play a game with 14 million votes. More than 22 million people watched Panorama. They have an interest in the monarchy. They want to know what's going on.
To hear Diana's side of the story. Most of us want to hear her side of the story.
Unemployed area, when the Queen or any member of the royal family goes up to a very high unemployment area, I bet you anything you like, the streets are lined with people waving the Union Jack and they're going
Yeah, the public are fascinated by royalty, mesmerised by royalty.
The tide is on the turn. The public sympathy with the royal family will leave with the Queen. The present Queen, when she goes...
Why do they buy all these papers about Diana and Fergie and so on? They're fascinated. Why?
They're fascinated in the same way that they watch Coronation Street or Dynasty. It's just entertainment. And this country, on the international scene, is made to look an absolute mess because we concentrate all the time on what these people are doing, and it's completely irrelevant to the lives of the majority of the people.
Right. Diana said in her Panorama interview that she implied that Charles didn't really want to be king, wasn't really fit to be king. Psychologist, is he, from what you know?
I think that he's a great and glorious British eccentric, and I don't think that really weighs against him. I think he's been inhibited because of his role. But I would look at the kind of issue that is a much more important issue. How does he sleep at night when he's presided over such great poverty, when there are beggars on the streets, big issue salesmen, people coming up to people in the street?
He's trying, isn't he, Prince's Trust and so on?
Well, I think he's doing a pretty poor job of it. And if that's the best effort he can do,
what more could he do?
I think he can do a lot more than that. He's a future. I think he can do a lot more than that.
He's not a politician.
Okay, gentlemen over there, you're desperate to get in.
A little bit out of the sort of gutter that it's sort of gone along in. I mean, there were some very positive things about Charles. One of the things that really impresses me is that we live in a multicultural, multiracial society, and Charles wants to widen. He wants to see his role as being more than simply the head of the Church of England. You know, he wants to. The day that the divorce was announced by Diana, he was actually at a Muslim temple, and I think that is really good. I think Charles does some very positive things.
Well, isn't he trying to be a modern head of state, the kind of head of state that you might elect? Neil?
He believes in the unity of religions.
Well, let us vote for him then. Yes, he might be. He might be.
He's visionary, I think, about things like that.
He's going to a Muslim temple again next week because he believes that he wants to be defender of faiths.
Okay. It is ridiculous to talk about somebody who is a hereditary monarch or about to be one in these terms that we're talking about him. You know, elect him, vote for him, vote for him. No, don't vote for him, he's an adulterer. This is completely ridiculous. All this is an argument for the abolition of the monarchy. That's what it is.
Ross, one last comment and then I want to come to you.
I think we always have dealt with the monarchy in that kind of way. They are a personification of our hopes, our mistakes, if you like, and at the moment we're living in a period of social transition and the monarchy is reflecting it.
And Charles, in your view, is
I think Charles
the perfect
will,
king?
if we give him the chance, will make quite a decent king.
Okay, is he going to be king? An astrologer, she's going to tell us.
Yes, he is going to be king. His charts dovetails perfectly with his mother's, which suggests he is the natural successor. He will be king. Unfortunately, he'll be such an old man by the time he's king that all this debate is silly. In the meantime, the Queen is our monarch. Look at Dunblane on Monday. Is our monarchy necessary? Yes.
Okay, lady there.
I feel he's past his sell-by date. Because he is this year, he's 48, middle-aged. In 12 years' time, he's going to be 60. And believe me, when you're 60, the younger generation thinks you're millions of light years away from real life.
People are starting to say Charles is too old. He has had a miserable life, really. We have to accept that this country has paid a fortune for this family to be unhappy. Is he going to be so cruel as to condemn his son to the same bloody purgatory that he has gone through?
Last from his side. Okay, very briefly you, sir. Oh, nothing to say. You were the first. Yes, you there, sir.
Can I speak? I just want to bring Prince Charles's personality back into this and his commitment and his ability to communicate with all people, with all ranks. He's been Colonel-in-Chief of the Gordon Highlanders, and I was in the Gordon Highlanders before this, and I was talking to somebody earlier today, and George Watson from Udney, a farmer up there, told me that he invited him privately to come up and have a look at his farm, and he did, off his own bat, and while he was there he met a young boy, age 9, John Reed, son of a local haulage contractor, who subsequently, 2 years later, had a severe accident, rode his bicycle onto the road and hit by a car. George Watson had the means of getting that word back to Prince Charles that this had happened, and Prince Charles sat down and wrote a personal letter. With all the pressures that man is under, he's got the compassion and the commitment and the sense of duty and the whole ability.
Two final words. 2 words, David.
2 final words. One, the royal family is supposed to be, according to Bagehot, the dignified part of the Constitution. I can hardly describe their behaviour in recent times as dignified.
Okay.
Secondly, John and Norma, behaved perfectly today at Dunblane. I think they would be an ideal couple to elect for 4 years.
Right, on that note, you have listened to the arguments for and against from our speakers, our studio audience and our viewers. And it's getting closer to decision time for the jury as they decide how to cast their votes. Okay, folks. What will their verdict be? What indeed will yours be? Find out after the break. Welcome back. Well, you've listened to the arguments for and against from our speakers, our studio audience and our viewers. Now to sum up, our speakers each have another 45 seconds. The first to do so, Ingrid Seward.
I listened to the arguments for and against, and I thought, because society has grown up, we need a man who is without political ambition, someone who really cares about our country and our future, and who can quietly get on with helping people in a way that politicians can't do. He too sits at the bedside of sick and dying people, but there's no furore about it. I think that Charles is the perfect man to lead us through the 21st century.
Thank you very much. And now to sum up the case against, here is Joan Burney.
I think it was the canon who said that we should keep the monarchy because we'd had 1,200 years of monarchy. I think we had 1,200 years of bear baiting before we decided that wasn't entirely a good thing. And also, somebody else said this had sunk to the level of TVs and the tabloids, but that, of course, is because the royal family itself has sunk to the level of a soap, and not a very interesting one. I can tell you an anecdote from my own newspaper. We had more letters about Jim MacDonald in Coronation Street hitting Liz, fictional characters, than we had about Diana and anybody with any of her people she was sleeping with or not sleeping with. I don't think we need a monarchy. I don't think we need a King Charles III.
Thank you. Well, you have heard the summing up. Now it's the time for our jury to cast their votes, but while they're doing that, let's meet some of them. Lady here, what did you make of all that?
Well, I would say this is obviously a highly emotive subject this
You're
evening.
Not kidding, are you?
But what I would say for myself is that certainly the strength of the argument from one of the sides has helped me make my decision this
But
evening.
you're not telling us.
No.
Okay, gentleman beside you.
I would say to the gentleman in the collar up the back there, he should decide whether his sacred organisation wishes a secular man such as Charles to be head of it, as Joan Burney suggested. But should Charles be king, going by the arguments tonight, I think we probably deserve him to be.
Well, there's some indication of the views of our jury. Now it's time to find out their verdict on whether or not Charles should be king. Foreman of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
Yes, we have, Anne. We, the jury, have voted tonight as follows. Should Charles be king? Yes, 9 votes. No, 3 votes.
Right, the jury has decided for Charles. Ali, how does that square with people at home?
It doesn't square with people at home again, I'm afraid. No, the votes, once again, coming in their thousands this evening, so thank you very much indeed for voting. And should Charles be king, the votes at home, yes, 48%, no, 52%.
Oh, pretty close then, pretty close. What arguments were you getting, briefly?
Well, Gwyn Rees from Dundee said, yes, definitely Charles should be king. He's been on a YTS course for this job for years. It's the only thing he's been trained for, so let him get on with it.
Okay.
Charlie in Kirkwall, on the other hand, said there should be a referendum and he feels Princess Anne would walk it.
Okay, one from you.
I'm struck, well, I'll just say I'm struck by the number of people who've got themselves worked up enough to phone in and say they don't care.
I've actually had a couple of calls from Sheila in Aberdeen, and Michael in White Rasher said he should be King of Scotland, they said. Make him King of Scotland. Well, we haven't had a king for ages, leave the rest of them in England.
Okay, chaps, thanks very much indeed, and that's the way you voted at home tonight. You have a chance to continue this discussion, though, on your local radio station. On Saturday, Steve Allen will be waiting for your call on Steve Allen's After Midnight Phone-In on Murray Firth Radio. And on Sunday morning at 11 a.m. to noon, Radio Tay AM listeners can tune in to Tay Talkin' with Ali Bally. Listeners to Northsand 2 can phone Paul Martin Davis, who's on air from 9 a.m. till noon on Monday. Thank you to all of you who've telephoned our vote line and called in on the hotline. Next week on We the Jury, we turn the spotlight onto BSE, or mad cow disease, as we ask, is beef safe to eat? I hope you'll join us then, but for the moment, good night and thanks for watching.